creative living, utilizing today's technology with the best of the past to bring you innovative ideas and up-to-date information for creative lifestyles in today's active world. With your host, Sheryl Borden.
I'm so glad you joined me today for Creative Living. We're going to learn how to select a color palette when we're decorating. We'll learn to use stamps and mosaic art and talk about a program called Fuel Up to Play 60. One of my guests today is Beth Sikoski, and she's an interior designer from Cherry Hill, New Jersey. Beth says the most common question she's asked by her clients is, how do you select the right paint color for their space? She will discuss some simple secrets that pros use to do this. Her company is Easy Designs, LLC. Another guest is Ann Butler, and she's a designer and crafter, and she's going to show how easy it is to use some specialty stamps to create a mixed media art mosaic. Ann's company is Ann Butler Designs, and she's from Villard, Minnesota. And first we'll talk to Sarah Robbins, who is the Director of Dairy Confidence with Dairy Max. Sarah is going to tell about a new program called Fuel Up to Play 60. This is an in-school nutrition and physical activity program in conjunction with the National Football League and the USDA. Sarah is from Albuquerque, New Mexico. Sarah, thank you so much for being here. I'm sure working for Dairy Max, you realize the importance of dairy products and getting enough calcium and milk and yogurt and cheese in our diets. But you know, I think we sort of skipped a generation. I think that it's something that really needs to be re-emphasized, and your company is doing something about it.
Right. Fuel Up to Play 60 is a nutrition and physical activity program for schools, and it was launched by the National Dairy Council along with the National Football League in collaboration with the United States Department of Agriculture. And what it really enforces is a healthy eating at school. So getting those food groups that most people don't get enough of, like low-fat and non-fat dairy foods, fruits, vegetables, and whole grains, and encouraging 60 minutes of physical activity every day.
That's the 60. I wondered what the Fuel Up to 60 was. Okay. So the Fuel Up means fueling your body with good nutrients, and then that 60 minutes of exercise, games, and or whatever they do at school, that's the other component of it.
Exactly. And so what it really looks at is empowering and engaging youth at school to, you know, want to become healthy. So making steps to make their own lives healthy as well as their own school healthy. And so they really look at ways to collaborate at school, and there's lots of resources that are on fueluptoplay60.com. Where they're all grounded in research. There's tools and in-school promotions, the website, as well as challenges and rewards for our kids as well.
And does the dairymax.org have information about this program?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Fuel Up to Play 60 is on there.
Okay, the
link.
Fuel Up to Play 60. Okay, and one of the things I've always thought with kids is if it's a fun recipe, it doesn't matter if it's nutritious, they'll love it anyway, you know. So sometimes we have to get kids to eat by making recipes or dishes that are fun as well as healthy for them.
Well, the fun starts with the name here. So we have the Totally Terrific Turkerito.
How many times did you have to practice saying that?
Several.
Several.
And what's really cool about this is that it includes all of those food groups that we talked about earlier to encourage that most Americans don't actually get enough of, which is the whole grain. So we're starting with that whole grain tortilla here. And then the next is just plain non-fat yogurt. So that's the next ingredient on here. We're going to add some chicken.
Pre-cooked?
Pre-cooked chicken. Here we go.
So it makes it easy.
That's right.
This could be a great after-school snack too.
Exactly.
Besides eating it at school.
That's right.
If it's already ready like this, it's so fun to prepare.
That's right. You know, if you have everything all chopped up and ready, so then you have some bell pepper, and you can do any color of bell pepper.
That's pretty.
I chose the yellow just for that pop of color. A little bit of onion. And I think really what makes the big kick with this is the cranberry.
Oh.
So this is just, you know, the canned cranberry, and you just throw a little bit on top here.
The colors are pretty in this.
Isn't that gorgeous?
You know, that's what's great about fruits and vegetables. I think if you can cook them or serve them raw so that they have that beautiful color.
Right, and then just a little bit of parsley for another kick of color. Now, what's really cool about this is that we have Fuel Up to Play 60 has challenges throughout the year.
Oh.
And a recipe challenge This was one of the winners.
Oh,
And so it's kid tested and approved.
Yeah, kid tested and approved.
Kid tested and approved, which makes it a sustainable change for your school environment to actually incorporate, all the food groups to encourage. And so you can actually, serve something like this on a school lunch menu.
Oh,
So you have all the food groups to encourage, you pair it with some fruit. And your chocolate milk.
Chocolate milk.
And you have a very healthy school lunch and something that you know that kids are going to eat.
Well, that's the key to it, of course, and since kids spend so much time at school, I really think you've gone the right way about encouraging the sports, and with the football league behind you too, I'm sure that's helped build the interest in it as well.
Correct. And, program advisors are really the key within the school, and they're the adults that actually support the kids so that the kids can, participate in the plays that the school has decided to, in their kind of activities that they've decided to do in the school, so around nutrition and around physical activity, and they just engage the youth and make sure that they're staying on track. And so program advisors can sign up at filluptoplay60.com, as well as look for opportunities for challenges throughout the year. So there's more than just, the recipe challenge. There's physical activity challenges, as well as, more nutrition challenges. There's also ways for the students to actually track their healthy eating and physical activity, so it really engages them on the website. And then lastly, the school can apply for funding, so it's competitive funding on the website as well, up to $3,000 for the schools to use.
And I would bet, like you mentioned, this was a kid-tested recipe. I bet you'll have some budding chefs and nutritionists coming up that would enjoy being able to say, hey, that's my recipe that they're promoting.
Exactly. It really, when you have these rewards for them and they can see that, something that they've done is spread around, I think
that's a great idea.
A great way to get them healthy.
You bet. Well, fuel up to play 60.
Filluptoplay60.com.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for being here. I know you've been in the quilting business as a designer and as a quilter. You created your own line of stamps and ink. But I think that's important because you've figured out ways to do other things. Not everyone likes to do one type of craft usually. Well, let's just start with this because this isn't quilting.
No, it's
or traditional
stamped.
quilting.
Right, it's stamped. You actually quilt it, but it's stamped and it looks like individual pieces of fabric.
So knowing that you've quilted before, you were able to figure out how to design special stamps that would work. And what do we mean by what unique qualities do your stamps have?
The stamps come in clear and red rubber, and they're geometric shapes that all go together like puzzle pieces. There's no lip on them. So you're able to place them right next to each other. You can see exactly where you're stamping. Even with the red rubber, you know exactly where you're stamping.
And that's how you created this because it looks like this was stitched, just like we would do in traditional quilting.
Right, so you're able to place one and then another easily.
I see.
Because you can see what you're doing.
But as I mentioned, not everybody's into quilting, so I guess from necessity, or your imagination going wild, I'm sure. Let's show some of the other things that use, I guess, just geometric shapes and stamps.
That use the stamps?
Well, let's just start here. This is really unique.
Okay, so this is a mosaic piece, and each piece was cut out using a paper trimmer, and each piece is stamped on, so this is a patterned paper, and then you can just see barely the white of the stamp over it. It just gives it more dimension.
It was a patterned paper to start with, and then you stamped it in white using various designs?
Yeah, well, I used all the same design. I used the diamond pattern.
Oh,
so it was
I
all
can
the
see
same.
it, like right here. I can see this one.
And then on some it's lighter. It just kind of gives it more dimension.
I see. Okay, this one is another mosaic pattern, but it has some extra elements.
Right, this was a pattern paper, and then I printed out, I printed out the words to give it a saying. And then again, I used the paper trimmer to cut out all the squares and stamped over them.
Okay, so again, these are individual. I thought maybe it was strips, which I guess you could do too, but
Right.
this is for the mosaic.
Yep.
Added a little bedazzle there on the bottom.
Right.
But I know one time when you were here, you showed me how to work with this polymer clay.
Right. So I took the stamps and I stamped right into the clay. So you can see
same stamp,
the diamond effect. And then I took and I added just a little bit of the tacky glue on top after, you know, I had it cut the size I wanted. And I waited about 30 seconds for that to set up. And then I took foil and rubbed on it, pulled it away,
Lifted
and
it.
then you get just pieces of foil effect to give it that color.
That is interesting. And that's just with a tacky glue. And like you say, the right product is really the key to the success, so don't skimp on it sometimes. Now, how is this different, other than I noticed the edges?
I just took the square stamp and stamped continually around to give it another look.
Well, I like that. And the color combinations are just never ending. Well, this is my favorite right here. So cute. So these stamps and these inks are good for fabric too.
Right. You have to heat set it. So I stamped out the little shapes how I wanted it, and then I heat set it with an iron. And then I came over it with Scribbles paint, threw glitter on top to give it that bling.
Does it have to be set again or heat set again?
No,
Not after
because
that.
it's a dimensional ink. So I went around it, put the glitter on, shook the glitter off, and it's ready.
And this can be washed, I assume?
Yep.
You'd have to if it's
You
white.
have to wait till the Scribbles is all set up.
And look at this. Is this cute or what?
So yeah, just a little matching outfit for my granddaughter.
Oh, I see. Somebody very special. What a neat idea. And I love bracelets.
Right, so this is the same.
Oh, it's a diamond. I see
It's
that.
the diamond pattern, so it's the same as what was on the mosaics. And what I did was I used shimmers, Ursay Finishes shimmers, to paint the bracelet. It's a wooden bracelet.
Oh,
And then I put some powder, metallic powders on top, and I used the stamp to pull away the pattern.
It's almost like a reverse design, isn't it?
Yep, and then I put eco epoxy on it to give it
protect
that
it.
shimmer. Yep.
Gosh, those would be quick gifts to make, wouldn't it?
Easy.
That'd be fun.
I like quick and easy.
I do too. Beautiful necklace. I recognize this pattern from looking at your stamps.
Right, and this is just a piece of wood. So it's just a wood base. I painted it and stamped over it. And because the stamps are flexible, you can just stamp, right, because this is a domed, you know, little dome shape.
So you wouldn't put it on the block.
Nope.
Then you'd just put it in your hand
Right.
and use it. Oh, that's great.
Yeah, add a little crystal and you're set.
That's cute. Of course, I love to make cards, so this is save the best for last, maybe.
Right, so you can do all sorts of things with the stamps. And this one, I stamped here and here, and then I put Post-it notes over each of those shapes. And I stamped the square plaid over it. You pull away the Post-it note, and it creates a whole new pattern.
It's like using painter's tape when you paint.
Right.
That's great.
Right.
Okay.
And these are actually the same card. This one is just done with all green, and this is with the multicolors.
It looks totally different, doesn't it?
Right.
That's what's beautiful about it.
And this one was done with triangles, and then the square, same technique, put the Post-it note over this, and then I stamped the square so it doesn't show up.
That's the only thing we need to be sure we remember to do is to mask off what we don't want to
Right.
stamp. Oh, I love, whoops, I left one off. Let's look at that again. It's the same
Right.
colors. Okay.
And this one is just the overstamping, where I stamped pink and black over it. This was white cardstock.
This whole thing was white. Oh, okay. Could you have done it the other way?
Yeah.
Pink over black?
Yep, and it gives you a total different effect.
I guess it would.
And it depends which pattern you're using too.
You know what I like about this though is if you don't have quite the color you want, you really just create your own.
Right.
Which makes it you. It's individualized. Well, you just have more great ideas. You've come up with products that I know everyone's going to be interested in, whether you're a real quilter or not, but we'll all enjoy trying it. Thanks very much, Ann.
Thank you.
Beth, thank you so much for being here. You're an interior designer, you have your own business, and I would imagine, and maybe I'm wrong, but when people hire you or you talk to potential clients, do they just sometimes say, I just want you to create a miracle in here, but I don't even know what I like?
More often than not, I think my clients have some idea of what they'd like, even if it's just a feeling.
Oh,
Sometimes they have a color in mind, or you're never quite sure. Sometimes they're certain they want to keep a certain piece of furniture. Very rarely do I have someone say, let's wipe it all out and let's start anew.
Even if we might want to, most of us couldn't afford to do that.
That's true.
Well, you mentioned color, and to me that just is almost the most important thing and maybe the basics of where we start. But it's not easy, and when you go into a paint store, just seeing, you know,
Thousands.
there are reds, yes,
Yeah.
but there are just zillions of these. So
right.
how do you help people select that perfect color scheme?
Well, it is one of the most challenging questions that I'm asked as a designer very often. And the way I try to help a client choose color is kind of a 6-step process that we use. I'd like to start, if I could, by demonstrating a before picture.
I like to see the before and afters.
Yes,
I think
they're
that's
always
really
so much
amazing.
Fun, yes. This is a picture of a client's family room before we were started.
It's nice. Has some beautiful things in it.
Well,
but
it does, but the key here is that it looks very dark, even though they've painted the walls a very light color. So what we wanted to do is try to brighten that room up, and the way we do that is step or tip number 1, which is try to find an inspiration if you can. Now, an inspiration can be anything from a piece of artwork that has a combination of color in it. It could be fabric that a client has in mind that's covering their sofa and they don't want to change that. It could be an image in their mind of a safe or wonderful place that they've gone.
or pictures from magazines. That's where
That's
I usually
also
find
true.
mine.
Yeah. Surprisingly, a lot of clients do not look at
really?
trade magazines. No,
Oh.
they don't. I bring a lot along to show them.
Sure.
Often they don't have it. In this particular instance, though, my client was interested in using this particular
I
piece
love
of fabric for her window treatments.
Oh,
So I thought we'd demonstrate that. Even though it's a bright red, I would really like to point out some of the very neutral colors that are in this fabric. You can see that there's green and gold and tan, there's brown, there's beige. So there's so many neutral colors in this fabric. It's a perfect inspiration or starting point for us.
And there's variations of every color that you just mentioned.
Absolutely.
So that's interesting.
Absolutely. So by using this as our inspiration, this is how we began to create the new room.
Well,
the new
we'll
and
leave it here
improved
for
room.
the new and improved room. Okay. Oh, and here are
Okay.
the windows that you were talking about that she
Right.
wanted to create.
Right. So this is the after result. And what you can see here is that we've used the fabric for the window treatments that she had asked. But the key here, which takes us to step number 2, is what we call the 60-30-10 rule.
I've heard that. Would you explain that?
Sure, I'd be glad to. The 60-30-10 rule simply says that 60% of the color that you're going to use in a room should be obviously the primary color, but it also should have the most flexibility. It should probably be lighter than some of the other colors that you're using, but just keep in mind that you're using it over 60% of your room, which of course will include the wall.
So it could be the walls. Could it also be the flooring? Or is that not considered the 60%? Is it always walls?
Area rug, for example, you could use, yes. I mean, at the end of the day, when you look at that entire finished room, 60% of your primary color should make up that room.
And in this case, it was the walls, right?
It was the walls, but you'll notice that the area rug is also green, and there are also some accents in green throughout the room. Now, the 30% component of the rule is it's your secondary color, and the secondary color is all of our trim, it's some of the furnishings, and it's also the fireplace, which you'll see in another photograph. And then finally, the 10% part of the rule simply is your accent color. So that's where you're adding pops of color, and in this instance, believe it or not, the window treatments became our accent color of red, and you'll see those pops throughout the room as well.
Well, right, and it's such a pretty fabric to pick those accent colors, and they just sort of pop. That's the first thing you see in this picture. And here's that fireplace you were talking about.
Yes, we whitewashed the fireplace so that it didn't have that dark appearance before. I think tip number 3 would be to use variations of the same colors that you've finally selected. So we know that we've selected green, we know that we've selected creams and beiges, and we know we've selected red. So if you look at the photograph that you're holding up now, you'll see that not everything is the exact same color. Green, for example.
No, you've even got a
real bright
sort of a
green
bright
garden
green.
stool, right. If you were to use the same color green throughout the entire house, what you'd find is a very monochromatic room. And that would become very boring.
Kind of boring.
Yeah.
You'd tire of it much
Exactly.
sooner.
Exactly. So what we do is we mix up those colors in the same color scheme. So keep that in mind whenever.
And I like your idea about, I had read where you, when you think you found your right paint color, you do want to bring that home, maybe the small samples if you can get some, and paint it in different places on your wall and look at it, different times of day. And because I hadn't thought about that, if you're in a rainy territory, we don't, but to see it at different times would help you pick the right color.
Well, Sheryl, that's tip number 4.
Oh, okay, color, okay.
Whenever you've picked the color that you think is absolutely perfect, keep in mind that when you're in a paint store, you're looking at those paint chips under fluorescent lights. They're going to look very different in your home. So buy samples, paint them on every wall, look at them at different times of the day, and make sure you can live with that color before you put it on all the walls.
Very good.
Yeah.
And paint's inexpensive. Well, it's expensive, but I mean, it's the least expensive of most things that you change. So, and your other tip was to go a shade or 2 lighter. Once you think you found the color, why would you want to go lighter?
Well, particularly with the primary color, that 60% rule, that color will be more forgiving if it's a little bit lighter. Sometimes people will pick a darker color, and then when they put it in the room, they'll feel that they're closed in, it's not light enough. So if they move a shade or 2 lighter in the same color scheme, they'll get that same effect, but they'll have more flexibility with that color.
Okay. And a good rule of thumb, this was an interesting example. You tied in grays.
Gray, yes. Whenever someone has an interest in a very bold color, for example, you love sky blue, and you'd love to paint your room sky blue, it's probably going to be too bright, too bold, and maybe even a little flat.
Too much.
Yes. So if you ask your paint company to mix in a little bit of gray with that, it will create some warmth and some depth to that color, and you'll really be happy that you did it. In this instance, this is a feature wall that the client wanted to use for their media wall, and what we did is that paint color is the color of the trim. It's the 30%. And what we did was we added gray to the trim color, and as you can see, it creates a lot of depth and a lot of warmth to that wall. Very different look.
That's amazing. I had never heard that. Gray can be very important then in decorating.
That's right.
Well, these examples are just so interesting, and to see how people like you transform a room from nothing to spectacular is always interesting to hear. Thank you very much for being with us today.
You're welcome.
I hope you enjoyed the show today. Next time on Creative Living, we'll learn how to make custom needlepoint creations. We'll discuss what true abundance in our lives really means, and then explain lactose intolerance and find out what to do about it. One of my next guests is going to show how her company uses a giclée process to reproduce images on canvas. This results in images that are vivid in color and water resistant at the same time. Another guest is a spiritual master, and he's going to talk about how to create abundance in our life. And finally, we'll talk about low-fat and fat-free milk and milk products and learn why they're such an important and practical source of key nutrients for all people. But what do you do if you're lactose intolerant? She'll talk more about how everyone can enjoy dairy products. All of these topics will be featured on the next Creative Living show. If you ever have comments or suggestions or ideas for shows, you can email me at cheryl.borden@enmu.edu. I'd also like to ask you to become a fan of Creative Living on Facebook. Just go to facebook.com and in the search window, type in Creative Living with Sheryl Borden. Thanks so much. I hope you'll plan to join me next time for Creative Living.
We're very pleased to offer a new booklet that accompanies this series of Creative Living. This booklet is titled the 6800 Series, and it features a wonderful collection of ideas and information. And it's available free of charge on our website. Posted as a PDF file, you can simply download the entire booklet or just the segments you're most interested in. For your copy of this new booklet, go to our website at KENW.org and then click on Creative Living. Scroll down to the booklet section and you can click on the booklet or on any of the other booklets we have available online. We'd also like to invite you to sign up for our free e-newsletter. Just go to KENW.org and click on the Sign Up Now button and input your email address. Thank you.